Good morning, Adeleye Adiola Abiodun. Thank you very much for joining. We'll be starting a little bit early today. I have a session by 7:30, so I won't be available by 8. So I need to do what we need to do early in the morning. So for those that will be seeing this afterwards, you probably just watch the video. K-Bell, thank you very much for joining. Good morning. We'll continue our conversation on A to Z of export business financing. And today we'll be looking at part 6. We started this conversation some days ago. We've had part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, and part 6. It's extremely important that financing in Nigeria, as far as export is concerned, is done, but it has also going to be done if the stakeholders do what they have to do in terms of ensuring that all that is expected of them in terms of documentation, credibility, competence are presented to the bank in such a way that the bank is comfortable to go ahead. So this morning we'll be looking at part 6 of A to Z of export business financing. I'll be looking at history. Look at this quote. Thinking of speedy approval of your future export financing transaction, then keep good record. Keep a good and detailed record of your export transaction today. If you want a speedy approval of your export finance transaction in future, then keep a good and detailed record of export transaction today. Keeping a good record of the export transaction today gives you the opportunity for speedy approval of your request in future. I'll take that again. Keeping a good record of your export transaction today gives you the opportunity for a speedy approval of your request for financing in the future. So keep a good record of your export finance transaction today. Keep a good record of your export finance transaction today, and that's very, very important. That's very, very important. It's very important because if you do not keep a good record of your transaction today, it becomes very difficult for you to be able to. It's very important so that at the end of the day, it becomes easier for you to ensure that at the end of the day, your request is approved. Your request is not delayed. Your request is seems and deemed to be very, very, very credible. Your request is seen and deemed to be very, very, very credible. So today we'll be looking at history. History provides credibility. History provides credibility. When you're going to a bank to request for funds as an exporter, or you are going to an investor or a financial institution, either commercial or regular financial institution, to request for financing, it's very important you find a way to demonstrate credibility to them via your history. Because credibility is consistency of result. Credibility is consistency of result. So if you demonstrate your result to them by showing the history of previous transaction, it becomes easier for them to see you as being serious, as being ready for the financing, and also as being credible. But when you are unable to demonstrate it to them, then you are telling them that you are not serious about this transaction and probably not credible. History of previous transaction done by an exporter is very critical in taking financing decision by the bank. Demonstrating, showing, proving that you have done it before gives the banks a comfort. The bank is trying to ensure that it doesn't gamble with the depositor's fund. So the depositor are not seeing that, look, this bank is not able to keep our money. When we keep our money there, when we're coming to pick it up, they'll be telling us stories. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. So a bank must keep its credibility with its depositor by ensuring that it's also showing a sense of responsibility with the money given to him. So he wants to disperse that money to people asking for loan responsibly. In dispersing the loan responsibly, they want to be sure they are not giving it to someone who is a greenhorn. I am an advocate of financing a first-timer in export, but not a first-timer in business. If you're a first-timer in business, at the same time a first-timer in export, I won't also recommend you even go for financing. You know, yesterday we had a Twitter conference. And in that Twitter conference, Dimeji Bakare, good morning. Thank you for joining. In that Twitter conference by UK Aid PDF2 in Abuja, someone asked a question and it was saying, what would you say about someone going to look for a loan as a startup to do export transaction? And I said, look, it's not wise for you to go and look for a loan. Rather, use your own money, raise money yourself to do that transaction, so that you will have used your money to try out. You can't afford to be using a loan to test. You should be using your own capital to test and using loan for expansion, for growth. You should not be using loan to test the concept, to prove the concept, to be sure you are able to pull through or do the transaction. You should be using loan to expand, to grow, to increase the capacity and the output of the business. So, for bank to make an informed export financing decision, history becomes very important. This is because it demonstrates the credibility of the exporter's request. It shows the competence of the exporters to perform. History demonstrates the credibility of the exporter's request, and it shows the competence of the exporter to perform. History demonstrates the credibility of the exporter's request and shows the competence of the exporter to perform. And it also shows that your character, being able to deliver on time and in time. Your history, evidenced by documentation, will show us your credibility. We show us that's your result, that you have done it before. We show us your character. If they tell you to ship 100 metric tons, you are shipping 100 metric tons. Document can show us that. If they tell you to also ship particular specification, it shows your competence to ship that particular specification. So you are going to be able to demonstrate a lot to the bank by your history. And your history will be seen in your document. This credibility and competence provide the bank with the needed comfort to take an informed financing decision. Your credibility and competence provide the bank the needed comfort to take informed financing decision. Olumide Heistin, thank you very much for joining. Good morning. Your credibility and competence provide the banks the needed comfort to take an informed financing decision. Provide the banks with the needed comfort to take an informed financing decision. The bank wants to take an informed financing decision on your transaction, but they need credibility. They need you to demonstrate credibility. They need to demonstrate character and competence, and that gives them comfort. So your credibility, your character, your competence gives the banks comfort and makes it easier for you to be able to access the financing facility. Some of the information and documents that need to be provided by the exporter to show credible history of previous shipment include the following. Olumide Heistin. You're always very, very funny. All right. So some of the information and document that needs to be provided by exporter to show credible history of previous shipment include the following. So when I'm talking about credibility, I'm talking about the fact that you must demonstrate history. History provide credibility. It shows your result. History provide character, that you are able to do what is expected. You are shipping on time and in time, where you are keeping by your word as agreed in the contract. History also show competence, that you are able to meet up with the quality specification as provided in the contract. And all this give the bank comfort. So there are a lot of other documents you need to provide. And I will be showing the reason for each of the documents. Because when I talk about history, history is about documentation. Now, you will notice some of you have been following from part 1 to part 2 to part 3 to part 4 to part 5. Now we are doing part 6 of the A to Z of export business financing. You will see a particular trend. You will see a particular trend. And that trend is document is usually required for almost everything we'll be talking about. Document, document, document. And this is very important in trade. As a matter of fact, international trade is driven by documentation. 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 It's so serious that a buyer will likely be paying for goods he has not seen on the basis of documentation. A buyer will be paying for the goods he has not seen on the basis of documentation. A buyer will be paying for the goods he has not seen on the basis of documentation. Why? Because in international trade, documentation is as good as the product itself. Documentation is as good as the goods itself. Documentation is as valid as the good itself. Documentation is as valid as the good you are shipping itself, such that a bank will go ahead and pay billions, millions, and thousands of dollars, of pounds or euro by just seeing documentation. So what that tells you is that international trade is a system organized among countries around the world, such that we will be able to treat this thing via documentation. On the basis of documentation alone, we are going to act. We're going to take a decision. Just because of documentation alone, we're going to take a decision. And that decision we're taking on documentation alone is a valid decision. Because when I see a document, especially transport document like a bill of lading, it gives a lot of information. And that information, more often than not, unless when there are fraud issues, more often than not are valid. And these are verifiable documents. So let's go through documents that prove your credibility, that show your history. Number one is the history of previous shipment. You need to show the history of previous shipment. One of the ways to show the history of previous shipment is through your bill of lading or your airway bill. History that you have shipped before. A bill of lading shows that you have shipped before. A bill of lading shows that you have shipped before. A bill of lading is the document that the shipping line will give you when they collect the goods from you. It is an evidence that they have collected the goods from you. It's an evidence that they are shipping the goods to destination. It's an evidence that you have right to that goods. When you send that document to the buyer, that document also gives a right to the buyer. That document also gives a right to the buyer. That document also gives a right to the buyer to be able to clear the goods from the port. So, history of previous shipment. History of previous shipment by bill of lading. Steve Kumasi, thank you very much for joining. The next thing is history of previous volume. Derek Ayo, thank you very much for joining. Good morning. History of previous volume. History of previous volume. So I've demonstrated the history of previous shipment by my bill of lading. I'm now demonstrating the history of previous volume by my bill of lading and commercial invoice. By my bill of lading and commercial invoice. Thank you very much, Steve Kumasi. By my bill of lading and commercial invoice, I'm demonstrating my previous volume. By my bill of lading and commercial invoice, I am demonstrating my previous volume. By my bill of lading and commercial invoice, I'm demonstrating my previous volume. So I'm showing the bank the quantity I shipped in terms of metric tons. I'm showing the bank the value of the previous shipment. I'm showing the bank the value of the previous shipment. Remember, history gives credibility to my request for financing. 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 And this history can be demonstrated with the bill of lading, showing the history of previous shipment. The history can be demonstrated with my history of previous volume through commercial invoice and bill of lading record. Tina Osahon, thank you very much for joining. Another one is frequency of shipment. Frequency of shipment. For those just joining us, we are discussing A to Z of export business financing. This is the import-export platform on Facebook Live, brought to you by 3 Tempest Trade Academy. And my name is Dele, and I come on every day in the morning and evening discussing international trade issues in Nigeria. Today we are focusing on A to Z of export business financing, and this is part 6 because we started some days ago. This is part 6. And this morning we are focusing on history, how history provides credibility. How history provides credibility. History of previous volume. Then history of previous shipment. Now, bill of lading demonstrates history of previous shipment. Bill of lading also demonstrates the frequency of my previous shipment. If I provide only one bill of lading, I'm telling the bank I've only shipped these good ones. If I provide 2 bill of lading, I'm telling the bank I've shipped twice. If I provide 3 bill of lading, I'm telling the bank I've shipped 3 times. If I provide 4 bill of lading, I'm telling the bank I've shipped 4 times. If I provide 5 bill of lading, I'm telling the bank I've shipped 5 times. So the more I'm able to provide, the more bill of lading I'm able to provide for the bank, the more the bank believe that I've done this thing this number of times. Why? The bill of lading shows how many times I've done the shipment. You get bill of lading per shipment. You get bill of lading per shipment. You get airway bill per shipment. You get airway bill per shipment. These are evidence of the shipment you are doing with the airline or with the shipping line. Also, you need to demonstrate to the bank the history of previous payment method. History of previous payment method. And this will be seen on your sales contract. So you need to tell the bank, the previous shipment you did, what was the payment method? You know why this is necessary? If currently you are bringing a transaction to the bank that is open account. Open account, like I said in the previous session, is not very safe. But if you have shown 5 bill of lading, if you are showing 5 bill of lading, 5 bill of lading you are showing to the bank. This 5 bill of lading you are showing to the bank has its own 5 contract. So I show 5 bill of lading to the bank. I show 5 contract, sales contract. The bank know that I have shipped 5 times to this same buyer. I have shipped 5 times to this same buyer. Jim Abatunde, thank you very much for joining. Good morning. I have shipped 5 times to this same buyer. And the contract is saying, in these 5 times I've shipped to this buyer, the contract says it is open account 5 times. And there are evidence to show that he paid 5 times. It makes it easier for the bank to show interest in financing that transaction, even though it's an open account transaction. Even though it's not very safe. But the chance that the bank is likely going to fund is high because you have demonstrated, look, here is the evidence I've shipped 5 times through my bill of lading. Here is the evidence I have shipped that I got paid 5 times. Here is the evidence that in these 5 times that I shipped to this buyer, my agreement, my contract shows that it was an open account transaction. So, open account transaction, one hand. Open account transaction, one hand. Open account transaction, one hand. Contract that shows that the transaction open account is being presented, payment is seen to come in, and bill of lading evidencing that the shipment took place. Now, you can see that at the end of the day, with document, I'm going to demonstrate amazing credibility. Amazing credibility. Amazing credibility to the buyer. Amazing credibility to the buyer. History of previous payment method. History of previous payment method. Now, if my payment method previously is a letter of credit, then it would be great if I can also show the bank evidence that I did a letter of credit in my previous transaction. Then history of previous payment terms. The contract also show when was I paid, how was I paid, payment terms. When was I paid? Is it 60 days? Did they pay me 50 before and paid 50 later? 70 before and 30 later? How was I paid? Then I should show the history of previous buyer's destination. This person that paid, which country? Which country? Is it from a safe country? If it's from a country that have issue and is still able to pay, most likely he's been able to overcome the challenges of payment in that country. History of procurement strategy adopted. How did I source for the goods previously? How did I source for the goods previously? How am I able to source for the goods previously? How am I able to source for the goods previously? History of being able to source for the goods. How were you able to source for the goods? What are the documentation required? How did I make payment? Which agreement did I sign with the local supplier? Who are the people that source for the product? Or who did I buy the raw material from? Then history of my cycle. The cash conversion cycle. From when I start spending money till when the money comes back. The sales contract shows when I started the transaction. The account statement shows when the money came back. From the time I signed the agreement till when the money came back to me, that shows the cycle of my transaction. So if I tell the bank, I can finish this transaction in 60 days, my document must show that I'm able to complete it previously around 60 days, maybe between 55 and 65 days. My document previously must show the bank that I've been able to actually do it within 55 days or within 60 days or 65 days, no more than 65 days, 5 days positive, negative, 5 days up and down. I must demonstrate that the cycle of my previous transaction is actually within that same period. What are we trying to say or do with all this? What we are trying to say or do with all this is to show significantly, is to demonstrate significantly that the cycle of my transaction is credible. The cycle I claim in my presentation, in my request to the bank is very, very credible. Remember, history provides credibility to the bank. History provides credibility to the bank. And the fact that I'm able to provide the account statement gives history of previous payment from the buyer. So, as I round off, I'll just summarize all we have discussed. The fact that for you to prevent a bankable proposal to the bank, we are focusing today on credibility of your request to give the bank comfort. We are showing the character of your request to give the bank comfort. We are showing the competence you have to give the bank comfort. And we're saying history of previous shipment can be demonstrated through bill of lading. History of previous volume can be demonstrated through your previous commercial invoice and bill of lading record. History of frequency of your previous shipment can be demonstrated from your bill of lading record. History of your previous payment terms can be demonstrated from your previous sales contract and letter of credit sample. History of your previous payment terms, payment method can be demonstrated by your previous sales contract. History of your previous payment terms can be demonstrated by your previous sales contract. History of the previous buyers and destination can be demonstrated from the contract. History of your previous procurement strategy or processing or production can be demonstrated by your proposal and evidence of the relationship with your partners. And then history of your previous transaction cycle can be demonstrated from the sales contract plus the account statement. And last, the history of your previous payment by the same buyer can be demonstrated by the account statement. An exporter applying, therefore, for a finance facility with documentary evidence showing its previous history as stated above, we inevitably stand a greater chance of being considered by the bank if other terms and conditions required by the banks are met. I believe you've learned one thing or the other again this morning on A to Z of export business financing. Remember, this is Import-Export Platform, Facebook Live, brought to you by 3 Impest Trade Academy. My name remains Dele Ayemibo. See you in the evening by 6 p.m. as we continue A to Z of export business financing part 7. Thank you very much and have a great day at work. Bye for now.